What's going on, everybody? Welcome into episode 146 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast on this Friday, March 6, 2026. I'm your host, Zach Malum, but before we get started, please subscribe below. Follow all of my social accounts. Let's start things off in the world of basketball as the New York Knicks were in action this week starting on Tuesday night. They were up in Toronto to take on the Toronto Raptors. The Knicks won this game 111-95, the final. They got 26 points, 10 assists from their star guy in Jalen Brunson. Another phenomenal game for him, but the rest of the guys really stepped up, especially the starting lineup. Karl-Anthony Towns, 21 points in this game on 10 of 17 from the field. He had 12 rebounds, 6 assists, a steal, and a block as well. And then you look at the rest of the guys. OG Anunoby, 15 points. That's it. Just 5 of 6 shooting, though. And that's a positive sign for him. Really shot the ball well. Josh Hart did the same, 6 of 7 from the field, 12 points. Mikal Bridges, only 11 points, but 4 of 7 shooting from the field. So the Knicks got contributions from everywhere. They also got a good game out of Landry Shamet off the bench. He shot 5 of 11 from the field, 12 points. He gave the Knicks in this 16-point win up in Toronto. The Knicks shot the ball very well in this game, and that was the reason that they won. 57% from the field will win you really any game in basketball. The Knicks shot the ball very well. Not from beyond the arc, though. 34%, that's all they got. They did have 10 three-pointers in the game. That canceled out the 16 turnovers that the Knicks had in this one. Not a great sign there in terms of the turnovers and the Knicks' ability to keep the ball on the offensive end. However, what the Knicks were able to do on the defensive side of the ball, you've seen it in the last couple of games. Great work defensively by this Knicks team, holding Toronto to just 95 points in the game, 45%. The Raptors shot from the field, just 29% from beyond the arc. And that's a real positive sign for this Knicks team heading down the stretch. It has to be defense as the focus. You know this Knicks team can score. They have scorers on the bench. They have scorers all over the starting lineup, and those guys will get their points. Whether the Knicks are able to play defense or not, or good enough defense or not, is really going to be the story when it comes postseason time, whether they win or go home in the month of May and June. So when you look at it, the Knicks shot the ball very well, 57%, like I said, and that's a real positive sign heading into this next game that they took on a very tough team in the Oklahoma City Thunder, and that one was on Wednesday night. They welcomed the defending champs to Madison Square Garden, and the Knicks tried to take that recipe of great defense into this game at home in front of the home crowd at MSG. It did not work well enough for the Knicks in this one. They lose 103-100 on their home floor. They fall to 23-9 on the year at MSG, and they really missed an opportunity in this one. When you look at the Thunder and their inability to score well on the offensive end, only 45% they shot from the field, 38% from beyond the arc. They did make 16 threes, and you would say that's probably the difference in the game. But this is a Thunder team that takes care of the ball. They're a very well-oiled team on the offensive end. But 15 turnovers the Knicks forced in this game. And that's something that you don't see every day from this OKC team. 15 turnovers, but still put up 103 points. And that was still enough to beat this Knicks team at the Garden. On the other side for the Knicks, they did a great job on the defensive side of the ball, forcing those 15 turnovers. However, the difference in the game, the Knicks could not shoot in this one. 16 threes, I said, for OKC. On the other side, the Knicks only had 10 in this game and shot 29% from deep in this game, 42% from the field. Not good enough when you're wanting to take down the defending champs. And Jalen Brunson probably had his roughest game in terms of scoring in a big moment in a big game. Just nothing was falling for him. Only 5 of 18 from the field in this one. 2 of 5 from beyond the arc. He did have 15 assists to go along with the 16 points, but that just does not help the Knicks in this type of moment. You need your stars to step up big time, and Jalen Brunson just had a rough day at the office, only shooting 5 of 18 from the field against the defending champs. Karl-Anthony Towns played really well in this game. You got to give credit where credit is due. And 17 points along with 17 rebounds, shooting 7 of 8 from the field in this game is a positive sign for this Knicks team that somebody else besides Jalen Brunson can step up when they need it the most. 17 points, of course, you could have used maybe 20 plus, and then the Knicks would end up being closer to the Thunder in this game. They also got another good game out of Mo Diawara off the bench, who has had a good couple of games down the stretch where he's really shot the ball well from beyond the arc. He had 3 3-pointers in the game in just 13 minutes. And you add that to Landry Shamet, who every game seems to knock down a bunch of 3-pointers that are clutch for this Knicks team. He did not have a 3-pointer in this game, Shamet. He shot 5 of 9 from the field, though. 0 of 3 from beyond the arc, and that's really what tells you that it was a rough shooting day for this Knicks team. So a bad loss in the end for this Knicks team. They have a sour taste in their mouth after just not shooting the ball well. They had the champs where they wanted them. They just had to shoot the ball better. And yes, it's not a bad loss in the end because OKC is one of the top teams, if not the top team in all of basketball. It is a bad loss in terms of their shooting, though, and a game that they should have won if they shot the ball a little bit better. So a rough taste in the Knicks' mouth, and they have to now go into this very tough stretch, where they're continuing on after some very tough games. San Antonio at home on Sunday, then they had the Raptors on the road, then OKC, but it does not get any easier as the Knicks now go towards the West Coast and they take on the Denver Nuggets. That game is tonight, a 9 o'clock start out at Ball Arena, where the Knicks are 1.5-point favorites, total sitting at 229.5. Huge game for the Knicks taking on Joker and the Nuggets, and the Knicks being favorites in this game kind of tells you where things are at. The Nuggets still dealing with some injuries right now. Peyton Watson still out. Aaron Gordon is a game-time decision, actually, for tonight's game against the Knicks. He could return for this one. You also have Josh Hart, who is a game-time decision on the other side for the Knicks heading into this one. I think it's a big game for the Knicks to just settle the nerves after the shooting struggles that they had against the Oklahoma City Thunder a couple of days ago. Now you go up against a very tough team again in the Denver Nuggets, a team that you played the last time and had to go to double overtime to beat them at the Garden. That was just over a month ago, February 4th, where the Knicks ended up winning 134-127 in 2 overtimes. Tough game for the Knicks tonight on the road against a very experienced team in the Denver Nuggets. Joker, as well as Jamal Murray, will have their best game ready for this Knicks team, one of the top teams in all of basketball. Top team in the East, or one of the top teams in the East, one of the top teams in the West. It should be a great battle out in Denver tonight. Make sure you tune in. 9 o'clock start. Knicks 1.5-point favorites as they take on the Denver Nuggets out at Ball Arena. Staying in the world of basketball, but shifting things to the college game as number 18 St. John's took on Georgetown at Madison Square Garden on Tuesday evening. And this just proves to you that there is no easy game in sports. There's definitely no easy game in college basketball, as St. John's came into this game as 16.5-point favorites. They win this game 72-69. Just 3 points separates them, and 13-17 Georgetown. And Georgetown, you got to give them a lot of credit. They really came out, had a game plan for St. John's to take threes, and a lot of them. And Georgetown went out to a 12-point lead with just 13.5 minutes left in the second half. It was 48-36 Georgetown, and St. John's comes roaring back behind Zuby Ejiofor on senior night when the Johnnies needed it the most. Zuby comes up big for them. 23 points on 10 of 13 shooting from the field, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, a couple of steals, a couple of blocks, and that's what you need in your leader in a big-time moment when you need it the most. Zuby Ejiofor comes up big for the St. John's Red Storm. The other guy that came up huge for the Red Storm in this one was Josan Sanin. 26 minutes off the bench. He had 15 points, 5 of 11 from the field, 3 of 8 from beyond the arc, 6 rebounds, 2 assists as well in this game. The three-pointers were rolling for Josan Sanin. I think those three-pointers were the biggest shots of the game for the Red Storm because of how they had to catch up in this game against Georgetown. They could not only go into the paint, they had to rely on their guys from deep, and they did not shoot the ball well from deep in this game. 6 of 28, but it tells you a lot when Josan Seton has 3 of the 6 3-pointers that St. John's were able to hit in this one. So St. John's moves to 24-6 on the year, 17-2 in Big East play. Georgetown, like I said, you got to give them credit. Vince Iwuchukwu was really animated off the bench. You saw him really going back and forth with Zuby Ejiofor in this game. Of course, Vince Iwuchukwu, a former St. John's Red Storm player, played for the Red Storm a season ago, ends up transferring to Georgetown, and there was a lot that he was having on his mind in this game. He only plays 21 minutes, 2 points for him, but the rest of the guys, Kayvon Mulready, who also came off the bench in this one, 34 minutes, and he played that much because he was red hot. And 20 points for the Georgetown Hoyas in this game. Had 4 3-pointers for Georgetown. And then you had Malik Mack, who really controlled things from the point. 15 points in 34 minutes, 7 of 13 from the field. Had 5 rebounds and 5 assists, 5 turnovers as well. And that kind of killed the Georgetown Hoyas' hopes down the stretch. St. John's holds on. They win it 72-69. And thank God for St. John's fans who were hoping that they would still have a chance of being the number 1 seed in the Big East tournament as that comes up next week at Madison Square Garden. Well, the hope stayed alive as St. John's defeated Georgetown on Tuesday. Now it really comes down to tonight, as if St. John's defeats Seton Hall tonight, they will be the number 1 seed in the Big East tournament next week at Madison Square Garden. Creighton had a win the other day against Butler, and then you had Providence in a blowout loss to Marquette. That gave St. John's the advantage, as Providence cannot finish ahead of Creighton in the Big East standings, and that ultimately is the tiebreaker for the Red Storm to be the number 1 seed. But before the Big East tournament starts next week, it comes down to tonight. They have a very tough game, one of the toughest that St. John's is going to face all season long on the road at the Rock. The Prudential Center will be rocking because it is a rivalry game in the tri-state area. Number 18 St. John's will take on Seton Hall at the Prudential Center, and the Red Storm come into this game as 4.5-point favorites, total sitting at 136.5, and it's a 9 o'clock start between the Red Storm and the Pirates. These two teams faced off earlier in the season, and St. John's was able to grab a win, a tough win at the Garden. 65-60 was the final, and that was definitely not St. John's best game. Rick Pitino earned win number 899 in that one, but they only shot 36% from the field and shot 17% from deep in that game. The only reason they ended up winning that game was because of how many free throws they shot and how many free throws they made. They went 21 of 30 from the line versus just 11 of 20 from the line for Seton Hall. A very even game for both of these teams. And like I said, it came down to the free throws for St. John's to win this one by 5 back at Madison Square Garden. I think that's a real sign that this is no easy game for the St. John's Red Storm heading into tonight against the Seton Hall Pirates. When you look at both of these teams, Seton Hall now coming into this game 10-9 in Big East play. They've been a little inconsistent, a bit up and down. You look at the last 5 games, especially the last game, they ended up winning that one 77-68, a tough game on the road at Xavier. That was on the weekend, or that was midweek, excuse me. And then you had UConn. They took on UConn on the road. Played them close on the weekend, 71-67. So St. John's has their work cut out for them tonight, as Seton Hall has had some tough games and really grabbed some nice wins. Also some close losses, especially against some of the top teams in the Big East. No easy game in the Big East, and St. John's will see that tonight. A very tough game on the road at the Rock. Could it be a home game of sorts? Yeah, maybe, with St. John's fans coming out to the Prudential Center. However, Seton Hall is going to have their best game ready for them. It should be a great one. 20-10 Seton Hall taking on 24-6, the 18th ranked St. John's Red Storm. A 9 o'clock start out at the Rock. Make sure you tune into that one later. Let's finish things off today in the world of hockey as the New York Islanders, who are coming off a couple of losses out on the West Coast the last couple of days against the Ducks and the Kings. Rough couple of days for the Islanders, but they bounced back with a move before Friday's NHL trade deadline, trading for center Brayden Schenn from the St. Louis Blues. The Islanders, in return, send back Jonathan Drouin, a 2026 first-round pick via the Colorado Avalanche, a third-round pick, as well as a goalie prospect. A big move for the Islanders as they get Brayden Schenn, who's the captain, of course, from the St. Louis Blues, a very experienced guy who was on that 2019 St. Louis Blues Cup team. Not the greatest year for Brayden Schenn in terms of numbers, only 12 goals, 16 assists in 61 games. However, this is a guy who's a big-time leader who wins a ton of faceoffs, and that's what you're looking for this Islanders team down the stretch heading into the postseason. A guy that really is needed by this Islanders team heading for a playoff push. You get Brayden Schenn, a leader in the locker room, a guy who can win plenty of faceoffs, and that's what you're looking for in Brayden Schenn. Anything he gives you in terms of numbers, goals, assists, is really a bonus for what you're expecting from Brayden Schenn. Getting that leader in the locker room, another guy who is a captain of a team in the NHL. That's a real positive sign for the Islanders heading down to the stretch and into the postseason. They also signed JG Pageau, the Islanders did, to a 3-year extension on Friday. So that's a guy who's going to be an unrestricted free agent this offseason, and they bring him back for another couple of years. So they really fill out that center role as well. Matthew Barzal becomes a full-time winger for this Islanders team. Really good acquisition, in my opinion, for this Islanders team to bring in Brayden Schenn because of what he's been able to do in the past as a leader, as a centerman, and a guy who's won a cup before. You really need those guys down the stretch, especially in the NHL playoffs. So the Islanders make a good move. They get Brayden Schenn from the St. Louis Blues, and we'll see what happens as the Islanders play next on Saturday evening out in San Jose. But that will do it for episode 146 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast. Please subscribe below. I've been Zach Malum. Thanks for watching, and talk to you all on Tuesday.